Welcome to a brand new Demetris and a splash of Fanta from the Field of 68, everybody. It's Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. John Fanta here in Hoboken, New Jersey. Demetris Nichols is in the always snowy Syracuse, New York. And we're going to give you a state in the sport today. As we are in the home stretch of the season, you're coming down to sweaty palms time. It's going to be a lot of fun here in college hoops. This is the time of year that we just adore. Demetris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. You said it. This is the right time to play college basketball. It's money time. This is where guys get seen, guys get paid, people, make a name for themselves. So I'm just excited to spend the next 35, 45 minutes with you talking about some college hoops. So let's do it.
Let's do this off the top. I brought up that snow in Syracuse. A lot of teams, when they went on the road to Syracuse and still go on the road to Syracuse, have to deal with different conditions. What was your wildest road trip when you were playing for the Orange?
Oh, for the Orange? There was a time we were flying, I think we were flying to Miami to play Miami. And it was really, really bad weather. I'm not sure if it was raining or it was a lot of wind, but everyone was pretty afraid and scared. We didn't know if we were going to make it to Miami because of the turbulence that was going on the plane. And so that was one of the scariest, most frightening moments, because you really can't do nothing because you're in the air. Somebody else is trying to get you and your team to a destination. But I do have one other story on a professional level.
Nice.
So I was playing for a top 5 team in Europe called Fanta and Demetris. Like I said, very, very popular, very legendary. And we ended up losing a game that our owner thought that we should have won in Turkey. So we lost the game pretty bad. Actually, they beat us up really, really bad. And the owner, and mind you, we flew to Turkey, which took about 3, 4 hours from Greece. And because we lost, the owner punished us by forcing us to drive back to Greece from Turkey, and it took us 19 hours on the bus to get back to Greece, and we had to get off the bus and practice. So that's the life sometimes when being a professional overseas. So that's a crazy. If we didn't get on the bus, the owner claimed he would have told us to go home. So everyone had to get on the bus and take that 18, 19-hour bus ride all the way back to Greece. Everyone was miserable. You can imagine the smells on the bus. It was bad.
What were you doing on it? How'd you keep yourself occupied?
Movies, people being on their phones, read books.
What'd your coach say?
My coach really didn't have no power because he just joined the team. So usually in Europe, when you're playing for a high level team, there's only a few coaches that kind of have that power to make decisions. It's usually the general manager or the owners. And on this particular team, Fanta and Demetris, the owner kind of has a lot of power. He's kind of like the owner / GM. So he basically tells everyone from the coach's standpoint what to do, what's allowed, what's not allowed. But we complained. We were upset. The coach really couldn't say nothing because he just joined the team. So he's trying to figure out, wait, this is the culture here? So everyone was pretty bothered. The whole country of Greece was upset with us because like I said, Greece, like their number one sport is basketball. So there's only 2 really good teams in Greece, Fanta and Demetris and Olympiacos. So when you lose a game that you're supposed to win, you have to hear it for a whole week because you only play once a week.
Once a week, like an NFL Sunday.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it was, and that's something that I would never forget.
That's some crazy stuff.
19 hours.
19-hour bus ride.
Was
there a bathroom in the back of that thing?
It was a bathroom, and that's why I said, imagine the smells.
Yeah, we're not gonna go down that road. We're not
Yeah,
going to go
so
down that road.
it was bad, but flying down to Miami from Syracuse, I remember that day. It was my junior year. Everyone thought that it was over, and because stuff like that happens all the time. Accidents happen all the time, and we didn't know if we were going to get there safely. And that was tough. That was tough.
What did Jim Boeheim do on planes? I mean, was he?
Well, he sat all the way in the front. Players usually sit in the back. Players and coaches usually separate themselves when traveling. Everybody, kind of travels in packs. You don't want to be caught with the coaches, and the coaches don't really want to be caught with the players unless they're in practice or during the game, situations like that. But in traveling, guys kind of travel in packs. So the coaches kind of do their own thing, and players, do their own thing. Have you ever had any, tough road trips or tough travels going anywhere?
I'll share this story. Well, there was one time where I thought the plane was in jeopardy because of a snowstorm that was hitting in New Jersey, and we were coming back. I was doing Seton Hall radio, and we were with the women's team. And I got to tell you, there were some nervous ladies and myself on that plane because we were heading down, and then we shot straight up in the air. But I'll tell you this story. I was covering the Seton Hall men's team, doing radio and some digital stuff out at Iowa State in Ames, Iowa. And sometimes writers or broadcasters will do this when the circumstances align. Mm-hmm. And I hopped on the Seton Hall return flight because getting out of Iowa is not easy. Yeah. So the charter you're talking about, the game was at it was at 9 Eastern time, so 8 local. So we're hopping on a plane at 11 local time, midnight Eastern time. We're going to land at 3 a.m. Oh, wow. And Seton Hall loses. Sandro Mamukelashvili gets hurt, which was brutal. He had to get taken to a local hospital to get some treatment on his wrist and stuff. In Iowa. This is a nightmare scenario. And Seton Hall's all the way on the East Coast, but they're taking a charter after the game. Kevin Willard, the guy loves to win. Of course he does. But he's so intense. He's a basketball coach first, and so he's going crazy after the game, just in terms of he wanted to win that game. His team didn't play well enough. There were some calls that he was questioning late in the game. He hated the officiating. He hated the idea. It was a Big East Big 12 challenge. This is not a game you're scheduling. You're not scheduling Iowa State to go out there. That crowd is nuts. Well, we're on the plane back, and I'm thinking, man, coach, I'm actually up front because, again, like you said, the players are back of the plane. So we're up front in the plane. Willard is about a row away from me on the right side, just slightly behind, and I'm on the other side of the plane. And you try not to, don't be seen, don't be heard from after a loss. Yeah. But on the corner of my eye, I kind of look over, and coach he's actually got a slight smile on his face. And I'm thinking, all right, coach is happy. Yeah. Well, coach he was winning at digital poker on his iPad on the plane. I saw his screen was green, and he's just swiping cards, and they're coming out. And I'm laughing my tail off thinking, this guy, he just lost this game to Iowa State. And I'm thinking, oh, God.
Hey, man, it's on to the next one. You can't, coaches and players, you have to have a short-term memory because you're not going to win every game, and you're not going to play well.
And that's where an iPad game is so important.
For sure.
He needed some poker in his life to win a little bit on the digital poker and make himself feel a little bit better. And sometimes that's the life. I mean, when you come off a loss, that can be a long plane ride home. And God, it was.
It is.
But that's what coach was up to. Let's turn to the state of the sport.
Sure.
Okay. You look at the 1 seeds right now in college basketball, and you see Gonzaga and Baylor, of course. We'll get to the Bears here in a little bit. Mm-hmm. Villanova's been in the mix right there. And then now you've got a 1-seeded Ohio State Buckeyes team on the 1 line. And why are they on the 1 line? They own 9 quadrant one wins. That's the most in college basketball. That's an awfully, awfully impressive mark. Demetris,
Yes.
do you think the Buckeyes are the best team in the Big Ten?
Well, before I answer that question, I do want to say, like you mentioned, they won a lot of good games. They're second in the Big Ten. They won 5 in a row, 16 wins. They shoot 35% from the three. They have 3 players, E.J. Liddell, Dwayne Johnson, Justin Sewin. All these guys are high-level guys. They know how to play the game. The bench plays good from time to time. I think guys average about 20 points off the bench. But do I think they're the best team in the Big Ten?
Do you think they're the best team in the Big Ten?
I would have to say no. I know Coach Chris Holtman has done a great job with these guys, but I think what Juwan Howard is doing in Michigan is phenomenal. Even though they haven't played in the past couple of games because it's been postponed, which is not their fault.
No, it's not.
They are first in the Big Ten. They've won 13 games. They've lost only one. They lost only one game. They beat teams by 20 points or more sometimes. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Northwestern, who was ranked at the time. They just beat Purdue.
Yep.
They smashed Minnesota, even though Minnesota smashed them back, but they smashed a good Minnesota team. What they're doing, Shawnee Brown, Isaiah Livers, Hunter Dickinson, the freshman, the big fella, Franz Wagner, all-around guy, fills up the stat sheet. Those guys, they know how to play. They play the right way. Mike Smith, the general, the transfer from Columbia, he averaged 23 points for Columbia last year. This is a guy that has humbled himself and said, hey, what does this team need? How can I help this team be the best that they can be? He's a veteran. He makes others around him better. He averages 5 assists, only 8 points per game, but he shoots 46% from the three-point line. He's a true floor general. He knows how to find who's hot. They rebound well. They pass the ball a little bit better than Ohio State with 17 assists per game. They have 5 blocks. I think Michigan should have gotten that spot. If they didn't have to postpone their games, I think they could have got that spot. But Ohio State is hot.
In some they have it, and in some they haven't, and in some people have Michigan and Ohio State on the one line. They've been mixing it.
Yeah.
You know, with Villanova. Villanova loses to St. John's, so maybe Villanova's off the one line now.
Right. What you think?
We'll get to that in a moment. Today's episode, by the way, is made possible by our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. Bet Rivers Sportsbook, one of our official sponsors here at the Field of 68. We're talking Big Ten. Mm-hmm. I am just curious. I'm curious here about Michigan and the fact that they haven't played in nearly a month. It's not their fault. It's the health department following safety, following guidance that's coming in. But how does that impact the team? How does it impact their rhythm? We've seen teams come off long pauses and be okay. But the question is different. It's a case-by-case type of thing in this sport. And then I go off that, and I look at the Big Ten, and I see an Ohio State team that, as you said, E.J. Liddell has taken a massive leap as a sophomore. I think he's the most improved player in the conference, one of the most improved players in the country. And between Dwayne Washington and between their backcourt players that they have, and Sewing gives them a bit of a burst that I think you just brought up is important for them. Ohio State has a really nice balance to them offensively. Their offense was not very good earlier on in the season. I think it's come along, and they can win games in different ways. But I agree with you on this. I don't think the Buckeyes are the best team in the Big Ten. I think they're on a roll. I think they've had a great season. I don't know if they're the team. When I think best, Demetris, in this sport, I think the team that I trust the most in March. And the team in the Big Ten that I trust the most in March is Illinois.
Ooh, talk to me. Tell me why.
Because they have 2 pros who could very well both make their case to be lottery picks, first-round picks, no doubt, in Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn. But they also have a shot maker a playmaker, somebody who goes under the radar in Trent Frazier. He makes big-time plays for the Illini. The Illini defend. Iowa does not. The Illini can score the ball in multiple ways. Wisconsin has trouble doing that at times. You can argue Michigan. You can argue Illinois. Hell, if you want to, you can argue Ohio State. And Ohio State's on a rolling up on that one line. But I think because stars win in March and returning experience wins in March, DeSumo and Cockburn got great experience as freshmen. They are not your typical sophomores in college basketball. Brad Underwood has kind of remade the way his team defends. That's why I really like the Illini out of the Big Ten the most in March as time has gone on.
They, you said it, they have a great 1-2 punch because when the game gets tight, they know they can use that pick and roll with Cockburn rolling. Someone has to help from the back end so they get wide open shots in the corners and the wings. Or if they don't help in the wings and or the corners, you have Cockburn dunking on everyone. But this Michigan team has pros too. Hunter Dickinson is a pro. Isaiah Livers left and came back. He was a potential draft pick.
Exactly right.
So I like Michigan because they can beat you inside and they can beat you out. I have a question. If Hunter Dickinson has a bad night, they still win. Because he can still affect the game on a defensive end. He can still get rebounds. He can still get blocked shots. He can still clog the paint. He's 7'1". Every coach loves a 7-footer. So I think Michigan plays more as a unit, play together, they make the right pass. Ohio State, they're more one-on-one, whoever's hot, let's feed that person the ball. Dwayne Washington, sometimes he can shoot you in the game and he can shoot you out the game. I do like Illinois, but they're also young. You know, they have a couple of shooters. Sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're not. But I don't think we can go wrong with either three. I think all three of these teams that we mentioned, they are all high caliber, 1 seed, 2 seed type caliber teams. I would love to see what Juwan Howard can do with this young Michigan State team led by Mike Smith, a veteran guy that can really help others get better.
Columbia transfer.
Yeah, who knew that Michigan was going to be this good? No one knew. Who knew that Ohio State was going to be this good? Because like we mentioned, we talked to Coach Chris Holtmann in the beginning of the year, and we talked about them, how they're going to guard the 3-point line. Is that is that going to be the burden for them? And they seem like,
and it's been fine.
Yeah, right. And they gotten hot at the right time, which is very, very key. So hopefully, let's see how long they can go with this role that they're playing. It's going to be.
They got swept by Matt Painter, ironically, and Purdue. I mean, that's 2 of their 4 losses. By the way, Matt Painter and Chris Holtmann have both been on Goodman and Hummel recently. Check those conversations out. We had Chris Holtmann on before the season started. It was a great conversation. Look, the Buckeyes could be argued as the best team. And like you just said, I mean, I really love the game of Liddell. I think that Dwayne Washington Jr., has shown me signs that he is that guy for this team. He is that dude that can make the play. And C.J. Walker has 66 assists to 34 turnovers. So he's been steady Eddie and has done a nice job of running that backcourt. I just get concerned with Ohio State on the offensive end of the floor at times. There have been performances this year that have made me say, Yeah. And Illinois, when you need a bucket, you have such a great versatility between the play of DeSumo, Frazier, and Cockburn. And how about Andre Curbelo? Freshman point guard. I love watching this kid play. He sometimes gets even too fast for himself, Demetris.
He's still young. Yeah, he's still young.
But Curbelo gives them pace and tempo. And when you combine that with NBA draft picks, it's empowering. What's that?
Yeah. I said he's learning from a great guard that's about to leave next year. So I'm pretty sure in practice they're learning how to play the pick and roll. And that's the good thing about having veterans and guys who know how to play the game to teach the younger guys what to do and what not to do.
Yeah. Look, this is a landmark year in the Big Ten. I think the middle of the league gets inflated a little bit by the narrative that this conference is outstanding. Like, I have a lot of uncertainties with Minnesota and Indiana. These are teams that aren't on the same level. Rutgers has been better as of late. They look like the team that we thought they were going to be, and they were earlier in the season. Geo Baker is showing right now as a senior, hey, it's winning time for me. Yeah, I got to play well. And the Scarlet Knights are back in the top 25. We can't forget about them. When they enter the tournament, that's going to be their first trip since 1991.
That's big.
So that's huge. And they're going to be facing Iowa here this week. And they matched up well with Iowa the first time. What is wrong with Iowa?
You know what? That's the question that I have. They've lost. In the beginning of the year, they were top 5 in the country. Everyone, this could potentially be a national championship team. They've won their first 6 games. They have struggles. They beat some good teams. They beat North Carolina by a lot. They beat Minnesota by 15. Have they peaked too early? So I think they've reached their peak. The last 2 games, Luka Garza is only averaging 17 points compared to his 25 points per night. In 13 of those games, he has been the leading scorer of the wins. For them to win, he has to dominate. He has to get 25 points per game because he's such a high caliber player. But teams are not allowing him to get that solid position that he's used to in the beginning of the year. Teams are getting back. Sometimes they double. And defensively, we talked about Iowa all year. Defensively, how are they going to defend? Do they have enough to defend? And that's been
the answer is they haven't.
They haven't. And that's why they have lost 4 out of those 5 games. They give up 74 points per game, which is the worst in the Big Ten. They shoot pretty well from the 3-point line, 35%, but they have a hard time of keeping players in front of them, and their transition defense is not as good as it should. There are 7 games left. 5 out of the 7 games are against ranked teams. They play Wisconsin twice, which is going to be a battle. Rutgers, they only beat them by 2, which they're going to play them soon, and Ohio State and Michigan. So they want to – don't be surprised if this team is if they lose, obviously, they could be out of the top 25 before the season ends. All depends on how they react these next 7 games. So I think the way you finish is very, very important because you want to go into the NCAA tournament on a high note, on a positive side. And as of right now, losing 4 out of 5, you can't feel good in Iowa right now. What do you think?
Well, I just don't think they've taken that step defensively. Yeah. I mean, they haven't. There hasn't been one moment this season where I've said or where I've thought to myself, they've improved on that end of the floor. Mm-hmm. You could score all you want. That could get you to the second weekend. You start to face these teams in Sweet 16, Elite 8, and guess what? You could draw a really bad matchup. I mean, if you face a really, really good defensive team and you're not shooting the ball well from 3, and if you're Iowa, you got to be concerned. Yeah. Garza, I'm not going to completely sell them because Garza is a player that's too good for me to totally sell them. You still have one of the best players in the country. But again, you were just talking about it earlier. Do you play connected as a unit? Michigan is so much more connected on the defensive end of the floor than Iowa. Mm-hmm. They are. At least that's what they've shown us this season. The Hawkeyes have a ton of three-point shooting. Jordan Bohannon and Connor McCaffrey, Toussaint, and the list goes on with their ability to knock down big shots. But you've got to be able to rack up stops in these games. And in these final moments, they are not doing a good enough job. I thought Ohio State made some elite level shots last week in their upset win in Iowa City. Mm-hmm. But look, Iowa defensively is not doing a good enough job. They haven't taken that next step. That was the step we needed to see to make them a Final Four caliber team. And that's what I think is ultimately going to hold them back from being that team.
I think so too. I don't think that you know, they know that that's their weakness, but it's not that, because I think they try. Now let's give them some credit. I think they do try, but laterally, those guys just can't. You know, they can't. So when you can't play defense individually, you have to be a great team defense type of team. And it seems like certain players leave other guys on an island, which forces the offensive guy to get right to the basket, putting Luka Garza in foul trouble. And you can't put him in foul trouble because he's the best player on the team. So he's going to let you go and get layups and dunks. So this team still has a chance to figure it out. There's 7 games left in the regular season before the conference play, before a conference championship in the NCAA tournament. But you can't just change a bad habit overnight. This has to be worked in every single day. And you talked about it. Their best game defensively was against North Carolina, and they shut down North Carolina. It was like they beat North Carolina by 13 points, which was huge. So if they could go back and watch that game and see how fired up they were locking down the wings from the bigs. Everything was great. So it's going to be interesting how they're going to finish out these next 7 games, because it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for them to win any of these games. So they have to come ready to play.
Let's go from Big 10 to Big 12
Okay.
here for a moment. And by the way, we remind you again that we are presented by Bet Rivers Sportsbook. Before we get into the Big 12, here is a quick message from our sponsors. Let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now's the time. Bet Rivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit, but what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. When you win at Bet Rivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And now it's even faster with Rush Pay instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. With March Madness right around the corner, there's never been a better time to give Bet Rivers Sportsbook a try. Go to betrivers.com today or download the Bet Rivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem, you can call 1-800. All right, in the Big 12, Sean McNeil gets the start for West Virginia because they're a little bit shorthanded. And West Virginia, they beat Texas Tech 82-71. They go to Lubbock and win.
Yeah.
I mean, Bob Huggins' team, McNeil filling in for Taz Sherman, and Miles McBride's been so good, all Big 12 first team caliber player. Derek Culver as well. But for McNeil to step up in this role and go for a career-high 26, what an impressive road win against the Texas Tech team that we both have a lot of respect for. And I just feel like every week we do this pod, we are talking about a new Big 12 team that marvels us, or that gets us so intrigued, whether it's Baylor, whether it's Texas, whether it's Virginia, whether it's amazing, Demetris. The Big 12 had an incredible season.
No, man. And that's the beauty of having a conference like this, because every single night you can win by 20 or you can lose by 20. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, besides Baylor. I mean, Baylor is just a tier over everyone else. But everyone else, you know, you're going to compete every single night. I love watching West Virginia play. Coach Bob Huggins, I've always loved him since the Cincinnati days. You know, sweatshirt on, sweatshirt. His players play. You can tell his players play for him. His players will jump off a cliff for him. And he gets hard-nosed guys that other teams don't want, and he turns them into solid, defensive-minded players who want to play and compete and who want to beat you every single night. I'm happy that they're playing well. And it's good to see guys getting opportunities, coming off the bench, getting opportunities and playing well. It's so hard for a guy to not play in a game for a couple of games, and you have to be ready. You have to prepare. You have to come to the gym early, stay late. And that's what these guys did. They competed, and they play for the names across their chest, in front of their chest, and not for the names and behind it. And you can see that every single time a West Virginia team plays. So it's always fun to watch West Virginia.
Their adjusted offensive efficiency rating is 11. Their defensive efficiency rating is actually outside the top 50 at 51. So it's not necessarily a great West Virginia defense. It is their offense that is churning out results this season. And when you play the style that they do, where you get higher volume of shots, I think it's impressive to see how efficient they've been according to the metrics as well.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think defensively and offensively, I think defensively they play as a unit where they're not good on paper, but you can tell that they help each other defensively.
It's still not terrible on paper, just not one of the best teams in the country, which they've been in the past.
Right. But as a team, as a unit, they look out for each other and they get stops when they need to, and that's what's most important, I think.
So the Big 12 just keeps on churning on. We're in a world right now where in college basketball, there's a Saturday noon game on ESPN2, and Drake is meeting Loyola. And Drake could be an 8 or a 9 seed in the tournament. Loyola Chicago's had a terrific year as well. I mean, the Missouri Valley is a lot of fun. We're also in a world in college basketball this season, Demetris, where there's not a blue blood. There's not a blue blood in the top 25. First time since 1961. No Duke, no Kansas, no Kentucky, no UCLA, no Michigan State. You don't have any of these teams in the top 25. What is your reaction to this development?
My reaction is, who's to blame? And I have 2 reasons.
Okay.
It could be COVID. It could be the youth. So COVID has played such a mental and physical part on these basketball programs. These specific basketball programs, not getting a proper practice, not having any traveling to Europe for team bonding, no fans. All these teams rely heavily on their fans base. Fans give the team confidence. They take away the other team's confidence. And when it's in need be, the fans can get on the refs when they need to. That, for me, that plays a huge role in these 4 teams not doing as well as they usually do. And secondly, the youth. Most of these teams are young. Duke is young. Kentucky's young. North Carolina is rebuilding. I'm not sure what's going on with Kansas, but it seems like they lost their confidence.
Yeah.
North Carolina is still trying to find who's their point guard. That's why it's so important to have veteran leadership in the locker room, in practice, and in games. Experience is the best teacher for teams like this. And because they have a lot of these teams, those 4 teams have a lot of one and dones, you can see the results. And there's a reason why the Big 10 and the Big 12 are the best conferences as of right now, because they have players who can get it done. They have veteran leadership, juniors and seniors. And that's why I think 4 of those teams, Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina, are struggling because of those 2 reasons. They're very young, they're rebuilding, and this whole COVID mess has really, really messed a lot of teams up, not just them, a lot of teams up mentally and physically. But don't get me wrong, next year, these teams are going to be so legit.
Really?
I think if everything gets back to normal and all these guys stay, I don't think any of these teams or players on these teams, the top teams, can leave to go to the next level.
But some of these guys don't have that in their head. You know that as well as I do.
I know. And it's sad to watch because these guys go to the NBA, they only play 1 year, 2 years, and then they go home and either go overseas or they get a regular job. So it's difficult.
That's the question, is do these kids stay and do they hang around? I mean, BJ Boston of Kentucky is a huge example of this. I was just looking at a mock draft. I didn't see his name in the first round. Yeah. Wouldn't you benefit by staying for another year?
Oh, listen, I have a strong belief. These young men, they should stay in school at least 3 years. Here's why. They are able to mature mentally and physically and emotionally. They will learn the fundamentals of the game. This is why you go to college, to learn the fundamentals. So just
Hold on a second, though.
go
What
ahead.
about I'm breaking right in. What about Cade Cunningham?
See, all right. See, not everyone is Cade Cunningham, though, right?
Okay.
So like guys like Cade Cunningham, they have to go. But
okay, continue.
But there's a lot of these guys who go to the next level when they're not ready, and then they shoot themselves in the foot because they see the dollar signs. But you go to the NBA and you don't know how to take care of your money, and you're out the league because you're not mentally, physically, and emotionally ready to compete at that level. You're going up against guys who are vets, who have played 13 and 14, 15 years of basketball, going back to staying in college for at least 3 years. I think it's good for everyone. It's good for college and at the pro level because guys are ready. Guys will be ready. Guys can stay in college to work on their bodies, to work on their mechanics, to work on their weaknesses, which will help them at the next level. And so now it won't be only 3 or 4 or 5 teams that are good in the NBA. Now the NBA teams don't have to wait for a guy to develop. You look at guys like Donovan Mitchell, who stayed in school. You can tell that he's mature. He's a lot more mature than the average guy because he stayed in college and he learned the fundamentals of basketball. And I know that the rules are going to change next year where they're going to allow these high school guys to leave right out of high school. But it's up to me. I would make sure that these guys get at least 3 years in school, and you can get an education, get a free education. There's some guys who can graduate in 3 years. Like I graduated in 3 years. So now you do well on and off the court. I just think as a whole, it's not going to be good for the game in the long run. Can you imagine the NFL allowing these football guys to leave college their freshman year, sophomore year? These guys are not ready. They're not physically and mentally ready. And the same thing goes with these college basketball players. The majority of the guys, not the Cade Cunninghams, not the slugs, not the top 5, just raw potential. There are going to be those guys, but not everyone is a Cade Cunningham. What do you think?
I that players sometimes make that choice that is a result of their circles becoming too many chefs in the kitchen. You get clouded in your opinion on yourself. And the fact of the matter is this: you can make more money overseas in a lot of these predicaments than getting stuck, in a G League situation and not really getting your shot in the NBA. So wouldn't you want to take 1 more year of college to a degree? And potentially that 1 more year of college could be your best remaining year of relevancy in the sport of basketball. If you come back to college and you make a run of the Elite Eight, Demetris, at least to the world of basketball, that's going to mean more than anything you do in Europe.
Right.
And in the process, you get that degree.
That's my thing. It's like anything could happen. We play a sport. Well, I used to play a sport. It's, playing basketball is dangerous. Every single night you are basically risking your life, your limbs, your body. We was talking about it, traveling on the plane, like anything could happen. So if you stay in school for 3 years, you get your degree, you mature mentally and physically, and as a whole, at the next level, you're ready to compete against the men that you're going to see every single night. But I've seen so many young guys leave early and they're out of the league 1 year, 2 years. And some guys get depressed. Some guys quit basketball. Some guys go overseas and never make it the way they thought they would make it. And now they don't have an education. So now they don't have really anything to really fall back on. And I just been, and I am a firm believer of not forcing, but advising these young men, young athletes to stay in school, get your education, and work on your game, and give yourself the best chance possible to be successful. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some situations where some guys have to leave. You know, some guys, you know, their family situation is not the best. So I get that point. But if your family has been waiting for the past 18 years, I think they can wait another 3 years. You know what I'm saying? That's just my personal opinion because I'm about education. I'm about plan B and plan C. It's not always good to just attack it and go because they say everybody has potential. Everyone has potential. But the NBA is what can you do for me? What have you done for me lately type of league. And if you can't get it done, it's the next man up. So that's just my thoughts.
Some great perspective this weekend. Villanova Creighton battle of Big East heavyweights. West Virginia and Oklahoma in a battle in the Big 12 over in Morgantown. It should be fun. He's Demetris Nichols. I'm John Fanta. Thanks to our producer, Pranav. This has been Demetris and a splash of Fanta. And on that note, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with BetRivers yet, now's the time. BetRivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit, but what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. When you win at BetRivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And now it's even faster with Rush Pay instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. With March Madness right around the corner, there's never been a better time to give BetRivers Sportsbook a try. Go to BetRivers.com today or download the BetRivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? You can call 1-800